To start with each of you introducing yourself and kind of your connection to Kakuma.
Okay, my name is Gislaine Abdi. I was raised in Kakuma. I've been living in Kakuma for more than 20 years. So practically Kakuma is my home, and I'm a Somali by nationality. I have 2 girls. I'm a photographer, human rights activist. Yeah, and a storyteller.
Hi, I'm Maya. I was Maya Alweth, born, raised in Kakuma. I'm a 4th-year university student doing media. I'm passionate about humanity and youth rights, especially refugee rights. I'm a creative. I'm a photographer. What else? Yes, I think that's good.
Yeah, hey, my name is Diu Lual. I was raised in Kakuma. Came to Kakuma when I was a young boy. I'm a photographer. I love photography and does a little bit of video. And I love telling stories of Kakuma. I think Kakuma started like any other town or any other community. Started as a very small community that was hosting the Lost Boys. That is when our parents were still Lost Boys and when they were boys. And right now it's big and it's also developing. I think it's bigger than some towns that are in within Kenya in some way. It's where we grew, and this is the place that made us who we are right now.
You know, Kakuma is a refugee camp and it means different things to different people. But personally, as a person who was born and raised here, I like to think of Kakuma as home. And it becomes a home because it has hosted us for more than 20 years. And also because it's the only place we have ever known to be home. And it's the only place that has challenged so many of us to do what we want, what we are doing in life currently. Because we realize it's important for us to tell our own stories, because we have been confined in walls of a refugee camp where people come from outside, tell our stories, but what about our authentic stories? So I will say Kakuma is home, and we are challenging youth every now and then to have a different perspective. We are trying to redo the refugee narrative, because for several years, the refugee narrative has always been of sorrow, misery, anger, bitterness. But when you come to a refugee camp, we are not so different from other human beings. The only difference is we are stateless. Maybe our identification cards are not valid. But aside that, we are people who have fled our countries with visions. We still have dreams. We still have to achieve. We want careers, So it's always like moving away from that negative narrative of thinking of refugees as people who are going to take up opportunities, but also looking at them at a point of humanity. These are humans that have something to contribute, something positive into the society. Yeah.
How did Dream Studio come about, and what's been your kind of mission or goal with it?
No, it's a funny story. Dream Studio was founded on friendship. Yeah, good friendship. We went through a media crash course with Film Aid International. Then after that, we came together as a group of 5. Yeah, a group of 5. Then we tried to pull resources together. Then only did we know that God is going to gift us with a kind soul. Matikon came on board, and that's how Dream Studio started. It was just a dream. When we finished, the idea behind it was, how do we keep the skill? And how do we make sure that we make a difference in our community? Because most of the time we have these vocational trainings for refugees, but we never have resources to work on the skills that we gain on the ground. So you find it's either we get the skills, they get lost along the way, and also the irritation of having other people tell our stories. Being a third party in your story is something, even if you know the truth, the other person already document what they think is the truth. So there is that irritation in between that was a good push for us, and also to inspire the youth that are just like us, that you don't need to depend on someone to give you employment. If your identification and your status of being a refugee is already a denial of opportunities, you can build opportunities using the existing skills that you already have. So that's basically the rough idea of how Dream Studio came to life. So we founded it, 5 of us. Then Marty helped get us equipment, and she has been our mentor, our friend, our mother, and that's how we have evolved as a company. Yeah.
The 5 of us, the other 2, actually, most of the time they're not here. They are in another place, they're studying. So it's only the 3 of us, and mostly the person who is the heart of Dream Studio is Lemmy, because he's actually here all the time. Yeah. So we were like, we need to be like different from all these other people. We have the passion, we have the skill, we have the vision, we have everything that it takes to make a difference. So we need to do something. I think they say when you want something with every vibe in you, something they say the universe will help you to do so. So that's when we met Marty, actually around 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah,
exactly. We just finished, and Marty came to just come and mentor students and all that. And I think that's where everything started, and that's how Dream Studio was born.
Yeah.
And actually we celebrated our 4th year anniversary 3 days ago. We've been working with Kakuma organizations, most of them. To name few: UNHCR, UN Habitat, World Vision, FieldMaid, LWF. Yeah, we've worked with many of them actually.
Whatever we are producing, whatever we are giving them, it's about Kakuma. So we know if it is about a certain project that they are doing, we know the beneficiaries, we know the houses, we know like all these places. So these other organizations are slowly getting to understand and maybe seeing from whatever we are producing for World Vision and right now UNHCR, because we are the vendors right now.
Yeah. And I think also what has been powerful about allowing refugees to tell their own personal stories is we are shifting from the narrative of always creating agenda setting stories where we have an agenda behind something. We are moving away from branding of refugee stories to be, all sorts of negative things, because when we are in control of our own stories, we give our stories dignity that we might lack from other organizations. So our stories, as much as we are telling the story as it is, we don't put down a character because they have the status of a refugee or they're living in a certain condition. We understand how important it is for us to shift from denying the refugees' dignity in their stories. And I think that's one of the powerful things that we have always been fighting for.
So last time we talked, you mentioned just kind of how the pandemic has impacted the camp. So can you talk about that? Kind of what changed last year in the camp when the pandemic hit, and then what have you and others been doing to help, address some of the challenges that came up?
Yeah, immediately the pandemic started, I think the first thing that the NGOs, the people who are taking care, or the people who are in charge of the camps, the first thing that happened at that point was all their offices were closed. All their offices were closed. They all went home, and the camp remained at a very, very vulnerable state. And we at the Dream Studio, everybody was going home, including the officials of UNHCR. Everybody has their home. And for us, the refugees in Kakuma, we had nowhere else to go but to be at our homes. So when everybody was taking care of their homes, when everybody was going to their villages, we were here, and we had to think and come up with ways of making sure that we are also protecting the people that we love, the people that we are with. And we went ahead and started our initiative where we were stepping up for Kakuma. So we spoke to some of our friends that are also refugee-led groups and organizations in order to protect the people here in Kakuma. The number was quite huge for us, but we wanted to help where we can. So the first people that we felt like needed our help were the motorbike riders, the ones who transport people, and the women who are the vendors who sell vegetables along the road. We felt like these are people who meet and greet with a lot of people or interact with a lot of people. So we went to our budget and got something for the materials. We talked to a guy called Sam, a designer, to help us make masks. And we talked to a friend at an organization called Glab Enterprise. We gave them, we came together to produce a number of hand washing soaps and a number of masks, and we distributed that to these people. So the motorcycle riders were having a soap that they can use and a mask that they can use whenever they are transporting people, so that whatever they pick from a certain person goes to the next customer or the next client. So that was the first thing that we did, and that was our first reaction to the pandemic when it started.
Yeah, I think after that, it started evolving because the efforts that we were putting, we were just pulling the resources that are around us together. And what came out powerfully when we were doing that, it's the power that we have as youth to mobilize funds. Everyone was in a state of shock, but still humanity was not lost, yeah? So that's when we were looking for different avenues, and social media really came through for us. Like just posting a post online and saying, this is the problem in the camp, and this is what we need, who can help? That was powerful because there are people that have worked here, the people that have done research here in the camp, and that was the time to hold them accountable. It was so bad to a point we had to inbox a few of the guys that we worked with and tell them, hey, you know what, you've always been collecting stories here from Kakuma, and we think Kakuma needs you right now. Yeah, this is the time where Kakuma needs you to help them out. And after that, after we did the first phase of the project, we went ahead, we started realizing the measures that were put in place by World Health Organization and were being implemented by other countries, they were not practical in the camp. Let's take a look at the social distance. How many are we in the camp to social distance, surely? And we share facilities, things like the water points, the toilets, all of those things are shared. Yeah, food distribution.
Even house compounds.
Yeah, house compounds. It's more like it's impossible. Even the shade, because we don't have, the weather is not good, so the trees are scattered. So if your neighbor has a tree, that's where you go for shade during the day. So looking at that, it was really difficult. So we were like, if we can't help with this kind of guidelines that are already in place, maybe we need to sit down and reinterpret to what people can understand and to what is practical in the camp. And that's when Dream Studio, as a media company, we have the power of, just documenting scenarios that portray the dangers of COVID-19 and how one can prevent themselves. Because there was so much misinformation in the camp about COVID-19. and the problem of melanin coming in the picture, where people were assuming if you have melanin, if you live in humid areas, it's not possible for you to get COVID. So some of those stereotypes were very hard to convince people that you need your mask, you need to sanitize, you need to wash, you need to social distance. So all of that were a problem. So the gap came in, okay, you have a solution for this, but people can't social distance on an empty stomach. So you have to provide a means of keeping them at home as you educate them, so that when you release them out, they are in a good position to protect themselves and the entire community. So that's when now we started shifting our project to who are the vulnerable in the community? How can we create food packaging with the kind of money that we have, so that when we are telling them, this is what you should do, we are teaching them, but we are also not keeping them at home without food. Yeah, so we started incorporating food packages for the very vulnerable people in the society who don't have any other means of business. And if you have a business, then we give you a mask and a soap and a sanitizer. And we kept on producing videos that we circulated with other youth in the camps, and just making sure that we break down the information to what the public on the ground consume and is more relatable to them. Because when you tell them to social distance, they're not going to apply that if you don't come up with other similar practical ways of doing it. Yeah, so that's what we've been doing. Then another problem, it's always like you cover this problem, then another one comes. So in the process of the pandemic, again, early child pregnancies, marriage of teenagers. So we're like, okay, we thought we were handling pandemic, but now there is another phase to the pandemic. Yeah. These kids that have been, locked out of schools, they're already pregnant. So what do we do about an entire generation of pregnant teenagers who are babies raising babies? So we're like, okay, we need another session of girls mentorship, and also seeing where the problem is. And that's when we did a mentorship through online, but Lemmy and the boys were doing facilitation on the ground. And Easterlyn and I from Nairobi, we made dignity kits for the girls. It was #BeBold. And it was more of creating a safe space for these girls to tell us where the problem is, where we can come in as friends to make sure that we help where we can. And I think it was really meaningful telling them, as much as we have the pandemic, it doesn't mean you throw away your life. This is something that we've always been working. And when we talk about education for refugees, it's very crucial. It's like your ticket outside the camp, because every other thing else will discriminate you for just being a refugee. But when you have your education, you can stand up for yourself, and you can create opportunities for yourselves. You become more open-minded. You can blend in easily in a society. So we are always on the agenda of, you need to hold education very dear to your heart, because that's the only card you're going to throw to the world in case every other opportunity don't work out.
How can people learn more about the work that you're doing, and what do you think are the best ways? Like, if people want to provide support, how can people support you?
I think the issue right now that we are still trying to brainstorm as a team is the gap in education. Yeah, we want to empower refugees through quality education, but when the pandemic hit, it hit strong. And the people that are affected mostly, I think, are displaced people. They don't have electricity, no internet, and we are talking about kids who are in school in huge numbers. They do not have learning material. So imagine when the schools were closed, even if they're at home, they can't read. Yeah, so there is a gap. There is a huge gap between the refugee kids and other national kids that have access to all these things. And they're meant to do the national exam that is going to profile all of them. So already our community is disadvantaged in so many ways. And one of the main things that we depend on as refugee kids is scholarships. And if you can't perform, then you can't get scholarship. So I think that's also a dilemma, and it's very sad. So we are thinking, okay, there's so little time. What can we do to make sure that we carve this? We know we're not going to carve the gap, like it's huge, but the little that we can do to make sure that we give them a sense of motivation to keep on reading and catch up with the rest. So we're still brainstorming about that. And yeah, we have online, we have Instagram page, Dream Magical Studio, on Facebook also, and on YouTube. And whenever we have any activity, you'll see it online.